The car industry is about to crash. And you're probably wondering, how can it possibly do that? They have no supply and very high demand. Well, let me show you how it's going to happen and how every car salesman, every car manager, everybody that is in sales will tell you otherwise because they're scared. It's not going to be pretty. So let me give you some of the factors that are going on that are going to cause it, okay? Let's start with supply. Okay, so supply rising interest rates, and demand. The supply right now, so if you go to any dealership that you want an electric car, luxury vehicle, you want a brand new truck, the supply, because of the microchip problem, is very low. Now, that is actually a little deceiving, and I'll get into that in just a minute, okay? Then you go to the used industry, the used market. Supply is high, but prices are high. Because the guys at the wholesale market, the guys at the auction level know that these guys are getting desperate. So they pay silly prices, or have paid silly prices at the auction for used cars to resell them so that way they could stay in business. But here's the issue with rising interest rates. Those high prices are not being paid for by the dealers. So I'm in Northern California, a little town called Vacaville. If you drive down the strip where all the car dealerships are, watch this. The average has 18 used cars. Found out at 18 used cars, the average of them have 84% are trades. They're not going to the auction because the interest rates that they're paying for their loans to have the inventory have skyrocketed. So how can they keep inventory when the cost is so high? When you are paying 0.40%, of course you can go buy cars, used cars, for very high prices at the auction. And most of these big car dealers, they use what we call floor plans, which is basically a loan from the bank to have inventory. But when that goes up to 3%, like it has over the last 2 months, now your inventory cost with the high price of the car and the high interest rate is now costing you more of your cash flow. And guys, no matter what, a business runs on cash flow. That's how a dealership runs. I'm in the RV business. I know what it runs on. It doesn't matter if it's boats, it doesn't matter if it's cars, it doesn't matter if it's houses, doesn't matter. It all runs on cash flow. And if you don't have money continually coming into the dealership to pay off these loans, to pay off the interest, to pay off the bills, it doesn't matter what price you're trying to sell the cars for, you're never gonna get it. So this is a compounding problem, and what's occurring is people are wising up and going, well, screw that, I'll wait. Interest rates are too high, the car prices are too high, we'll wait, time out, we're done. But here's the real compounding problem. Here's the issue that you have as a manager at a car dealership. And this is where it's really gonna hurt. It's gonna punish those that are not ready, okay? First of all, when a car manufacturer, RV manufacturer, any manufacturer of a big ticket item like an RV or a car or a boat, they still need production to move. The only way you're going to move production forward is if you get more sales. More cars on the road means I can build more cars. You can't just sit there and just keep building cars and they don't move on the road. So you're going to take and limit the allocation in masses to the dealers that are pushing inventory the fastest, okay? Let me give you an example, okay? So right now, the average Ford F-250 diesel in California is $20,000 over MSRP. And they're not moving. They're not moving very much off that price. Some will do 10K, some will do 7,500. It all depends on the dealer, but they're marking up these cars with a market adjustment and not coming off of that price. Well, what does that do to a truck manufacturer like Ford when they catch up with the chips? When the chips, the microchips catch up, let's say in the next 6 months, what does it do to those cars? Well, let me give you an example. This Ford F-250, let's say it costs the dealership $80,000 on their line of credit to have it in inventory. Times that by 3% a month. Do the math. At 1%, it's $800. So that means that this is costing $2,400 a month right now for them to sit on this truck for 20 grand over sticker. So when this truck becomes a year old, you're at 24, let's call it 10 months, you're $24,000. That's what it costs you in interest to do 20 grand over sticker. Eventually owners are going to wise up and go, I don't care about profit anymore. I need this to go away. We need cash flow. We need money coming into the dealership. We need new money coming in. So you know what? Sell it at sticker. Sell it at a discount. I don't care. Get rid of it in 30 days. That's the goal. Because if they do it within 30 days, they pay in a lot of respects no interest. Sometimes if they do it in 60 days, there's zero interest. Just depends on who they're with and what their negotiated contract is. Okay? But this is an example of why a dealership will go out of business if they either have too much inventory at a high interest rate, or on top of that, their management team gets stubborn and says, "Nuh-uh, we've been getting 20 grand over sticker for 2 years on this truck. We're not going below that." And that is called greed. And that's the wrong kind of greed. There's good kinds of greed, guys. Trust me, there's all kinds of good greed. But this is what is going to cause it. And that's just on one truck. Now imagine if you have, let's just use an example, okay? Here's a big one that most people will not understand, okay? First of all, let's make it very clear. I am not the smartest guy in the world, but this is just basic math, okay? So if you have $1 million in inventory and you're paying 3% a month on that inventory in bank expenses, what is that? It's 30 grand. $30 grand to the bank for keeping $1 million in there. 30 grand. That's a big number. And then after a certain time, they have to pay what they call curtailment. They have to pay the 30 grand plus the 30 grand plus the curtailment, which is basically writing down the inventory for book values. Because Rich, remember, new cars, when you drive them off the lot, they depreciate every 2 weeks. So the bank makes them pay down the loan when it reaches a certain time period to make sure that the bank is in equity position or in some kind of position to resell the car at the auction if the dealership decides to go belly up. It's like forcing them to pay the principal more than interest. So again, we got to think about this. So this is why the card business is in such a nuclear disaster. It's like a time bomb waiting to explode. Because here's what's going to happen. At the end of the day, we're going to use black this time. Prices are going to fall. They're just taking longer in the car business than they did in every other business, okay? Let me give you an example. So RVs, the business I'm in, during the pandemic, during the 2020, 2021, beginning of here 2022, you were getting 5 to 8% off MSRP. Today's market, you're now getting 28 to 32% off depending on the brand. There are some brands that don't have that big of a margin, but that's the average discount that you're getting right now. Dealerships went from making a 35% margin to a 10% margin or less in 4 months. Because they remember what 08, 09, and 10 look like. They don't care about how much inventory they have. They care about cash flow. Boat business. Same thing, heavily discounted. For once, the car business is behind the RVs and boats. And why? Because inventory. Perception. It's coming.